Once we are really clear about what we want and why we want it, the game-changing question is not what do I need to do, but who do I need to be? Now, let that one sink in because it's truly powerful. So, there are 3 types of people in this world. Which one are you? To find out more, keep on watching. Okay, so in this video, I'm going to show you the #1 reason why you aren't getting or attracting the things you want in your life or business. So whether that is more clients, more money, a happier life, whatever the case may be. And guess what? The answer might surprise you. So like I said earlier, there are 3 types of people in this world. And what I found incredibly interesting is that I have actually been in the shoes of all 3 of these types of people. Now, they're all in different points in my life, and I really think it's so fascinating that we can actually choose who we want to be today, right now, and moving forward. We can choose. And the reason why I use the word choose is because you can literally choose to become any one of these types of people today. You don't have to be born again, right? You can choose. Now, there are 3 common approaches to trying to obtain or attract more opportunities into one's life. I've tried all 3 already, right, in my lifetime, and one of them actually works. Okay, let's give each of those approaches a different name. Number 1, the complainer. Number 2, the struggler. And number 3, the one that has it all. So the complainer basically arranges their life in this order. Have, do, be. Something the complainer might say is, well, you know what? Once I have $1 million, then I can create the business of my dreams, and then I can finally be the millionaire I've always wanted to be. But because I don't have $1 million yet or the fancy car, I can't start my business yet or hire someone to help me. And therefore, I'll never be a millionaire unless I win the lotto. Sound familiar? Something else that a complainer might say is, which I actually have once said to myself, is that, well, you know what? I don't have a following yet on Instagram, which means I can't show up and serve the people that aren't there, right? And therefore, I'm not meant to be the coach or the leader that I want to be. So this was my exact mentality when I first started out. And here's the thing. My intent is not to make you feel bad if you are a complainer. Right? This is about self-awareness. I've been a complainer myself before, but you can literally get yourself out of this state of mind. The point is, though, that the complainer is always waiting for their external circumstance to change before they can attract the money or, become the person they want to be in life. Here's the secret, though. Listen up. Your external world is literally a projection of your internal world. So if you don't feel like or act like the person you want to be, it won't be even possible for you to achieve it. Okay, so next is the struggler. Oh, and this one I can relate to so much. This was me for a very long time. And to be completely honest, during my bad days, because let's face it, I have them too, I dip into this approach subconsciously. So the struggler operates from do, have, be. So something the struggler would say is, the more I work and do stuff, the more money I'll eventually have, and then I can finally be the person I want to be. So basically this was me for a very long time. Everything was about doing and hustling. Sometimes I would even catch myself operating when I slip into a state of just doing, right? My to-do list. I loved it. The problem with this approach, though, was that the more there is to do, it becomes this never-ending cycle of things to do, right? I eventually become so driven and busy that I burn out or worse, get into an accident like I did last year. My stress levels are through the roof, and I'm unable to really enjoy the things I'm actually doing. And what ends up happening is that I'm just doing, right? So here's the thing. I grew up with this mentality to always be hustling. So for example, if I got a B, my dad would ask me why it wasn't an A, right? Always doing, feeling like I wasn't enough. And looking back on 2020 hindsight, I was literally a hamster running on a treadmill. So the point here is that the struggler is acting like a human doing instead of a human being. Right? There's a difference. We are human beings first and foremost. Why aren't we acting like it? Now, before you argue with me and say, well, Kristen, doesn't achieving one's goals require you to be in action? And isn't that a doing component. So firstly, I want to clarify. I'm not telling you not to do anything, right? But before you start to do anything, if you aren't operating from a state of being, which we will talk about in depth shortly, right? You will only be doing out of hustle, stress, and anxiety. And there's really no flow. And you're only coming up with a lot of resistance, right? And hardship. So no offense, like I don't like to work that way, right? When I work and let's say that I'm overcome with anxious thoughts and I like start to like freak out and then it takes me longer to do something, I actually don't continue working. So instead of forcing yourself to work when you are in a state of resistance or anxiousness, what I like to do is stop what I'm doing, either take a walk, breathe, meditate, and get myself back into the state of who I desire to be. Does that make sense? If it doesn't, make sure to drop me a question in the comments below so that I can answer them for you, okay? All right, so the last approach is the one that works every single time. The one that has it all goes from be, do, have. Something that the one that has it all would say, I want to reach my goals. Who is it that I need to be first, right? What kind of person would I need to be in order to get the results that I want to have? Then when I become that type of person, what would I be doing, right? By being that person and doing the things that person does, I know I will eventually have it all. And so it is. So being requires a change in identity shift. And from my experience, can give way to what you want to really attract into your life, right? That includes money, that includes relationship, that includes health. So remember that who and how we're being in life creates the moving parts for how we think, feel, and act. And really, it gives us access to what we're really after. So let me ask you this. Has anyone ever asked you to do happy, right? You don't ever have to do happy, you be happy. Happiness is a state of being, just like success is, just like commitment is. Even in our language, it's weird if someone were to tell you to do successful, right? So we don't have to suffer and struggle as much as we do. We actually have the capacity to live our life with a true sense of elegance. The deeper meaning of elegance is not about the appearance of something, but it's more about being able to put forth a small amount of focused effort and manifest an abundant result. And to prove that, there's actually something called the Pareto's principle. And basically this rule suggests that 20% of your activities will account for 80% of your results, right? That's huge, that's crazy. So that basically means that how are we prioritizing the things that are happening in our lives? Knowing this Pareto's rule, doesn't that mean that we have an upper hand, we have an advantage? And instead of focusing on doing things and having this long to-do list, right? That used to be me. I would have like 15 things to do in a day. Right? Does that sound like you? Instead of like focusing on that, focusing on the things that are your top priority, focusing on who is the person that I want to be and how would they actually tackle this to-do list? What would they actually do? Who would they delegate the rest to, right? Because let's face it, we're just one person. So here are my top 3 tips I like to give my clients. And obviously I want to leave you with some tangible tips that you can start doing this week, okay? So the first thing is to actually start watching documentaries of people that you admire, that you want to be like. So what I did in the past is that I watched like American history. So people like Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, these are the great entrepreneurs of that time. And so what I did was that I watched, documentaries of them, and I would start to write down all of the characteristics that I've noticed about these people, right? Like they were committed, they were strong, they were courageous, whatever the case may be. So I really just noticed their way of being, the way they were speaking, the way they were making decisions. And I started to just write down and take notes on a notebook, right? So it could be anybody, right? Let's say that you want to be someone like Beyonce, and Beyonce is another person that I was really noticing and studying. And with Beyonce, she used an alter ego, right? So she had Sasha Fierce for a really long time. And if you don't know that story, I suggest you to Google it. But again, like notice what people are doing, people that are successful, people that you want to be like, and write down those characteristics, right? Literally take out a notebook or a sheet of paper and write down all of the characteristics that these people possess, okay? That is step number 1, okay? Tip number 2 is that after you write down all of these characteristics of these people, to actually pick one of them, right? We're gonna start small, we're not gonna overload you, but you're gonna pick one of those characteristics and actually commit to being that characteristic that day, right? I'll give you an example. So let's just say that I write down the word committed, right? Someone that I really admire has a committed quality about them or a committed characteristic, right? They are committed, right? So then I would, like, let's say today is Tuesday. On like when I wake up and I do my daily routine or whatever the case may be, and I do some journaling, I am setting the intention that I'm going to be the committed person that I want to be, the committed Kristen. So what would a committed Kristen do for the day, right? Does that make sense? So you're using that quality or that characteristic and setting the tone for the day. And so whenever I would feel like I'm not being committed, let's just say, you know, obviously stuff happens and you, like, things get bombarded, right? And you kind of lose track of being that committed person. The first thing is to be very self-aware. So when that happens, I'm like, oh shoot, okay, what would the committed Kristen do in this situation, right? I'm always asking myself this question. What would the committed Kristen do in this type of situation? What would the Kristen that I would like to be do in this particular situation? Okay, all right. The last tip I have for you is to actually take inspired action when inspiration hits. So this is something that I feel like I struggled with a lot, right, in the beginning, which is that I'm someone that would come up with a lot of ideas. Like, I'm such a visionary. I have so many ideas. I literally have the notepad or like the notes section. I literally have a note section of like a long list of ideas, okay? So what I really struggled with was actually taking inspired action after getting the idea. I would literally write it down, but then I would not taking action. So once you start adopting these qualities or these characteristics, again, using the example of committed Kristen, you're going to start to have these ideas and inspirations, right? Like, I get these all the time when I'm driving, like when your subconscious mind is really active because you're just like so like in the zone doing something, like sometimes inspiration hits, right? And what I do is I immediately take out my phone and write down whatever inspiration that came up, and then I commit and I actually put it into my calendar what I'm actually doing. So instead of overloading myself by doing all the stuff that I wrote down, what I do is I pick one of them, I schedule it in my calendar, like on my Google Calendar, I schedule it, and then I actually do it. So then it's not where I just have ideas and I'm actually not doing it. So that's the one thing I really want you to keep in mind, is that ideas are great, but if you're not implementing on your ideas, they're just ideas. And no offense, ideas don't really matter in the long run if they're not implemented. That's what I've discovered throughout my many years of having way too many ideas. So again, those are the 3 tips I just mentioned. Number 1, actually following and documenting these people, right? Understanding what characteristics they have, what qualities they possess. Number 2 is really picking, one of those qualities and committing to that characteristic or that quality on a certain day, right? And you can do that for the rest of the week. And thirdly is to really take inspired action when inspiration hits, right? Don't just put it off until next month or like next year like a lot of us do. Now, if you love the hacks that I just gave you so far, then make sure you hit the notification bell and subscribe to my channel so that you'll get notified the next time I give away more hacks and tips that will help you in your business. Alrighty, and if you want to learn more about mindset, marketing, and metaphysics, make sure you check out these 2 videos right over here. Anyways, guys, I love you so much. I appreciate you, and I cannot wait to bring more goodies for you in future videos. I'll see you in the next one. See ya!